Welcome to the Shadows of Success, where we explore the paths, the pivots, the unseen efforts behind remarkable lives. I'm your host, Rob Wise. Today we have a special guest, my dad, Robert D. Wise, a Vietnam veteran, a man who made his mark in corporate America as an industrial designer, accruing over 36 patents across children's furniture, car seats, baby carriers, toys, and more. Dad, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
In this episode, we're going to talk about your design career, how you got into it, the challenges working in large organizations, how you innovated in children's products, and the lessons you learned along the way. So let's start at the beginning. What made you want to be a designer?
Well, I think with my love of art, love of design, love of mechanics, they all seem to be blended together to form one good area to study. And I remember going through the catalog, the Kent State University catalog one time, and I read the description of the courses. I went, I love all this. This is great stuff. This is like fun.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of got after the service. I completed my college career at Kent with a degree in industrial design and went on to look for jobs.
So you started at Ohio University, right? Before you went into the service?
Yeah.
And were you an art major at Ohio University?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you went to Vietnam, and when you came back, then you looked at Kent?
No, I went to Kent after OU for a short period of time, and then went into the service for 4 years.
And when did you enlist in the service?
June 1967.
Okay. We're going to talk about your service another time, but so I'm going to focus mostly on your career after the service, but part of it was bridged by your service in Vietnam. When you were looking into industrial design at Kent State, was there anything that influenced you besides looking at that course catalog?
Just knowledge, love of art, reading, books, pamphlets, literature, anything I could on design. Art in general is very interesting to me, so I guess kind of like increased my knowledge of those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So I experienced that love of industrial design.
So your passion for art took you in the direction of industrial design, bringing together all of those pieces. And I know just from living with you for 18 years that, the things that we did together were always kind of hands-on. We built things. You always gave me tools. We were in the garage together. I watched you and Grandpa build things. So I knew that was part of just the natural course for you early on in your career. And one of the things that I talk with people about a lot is they're not sure where to go in their career. And what I love about your story is that you took something you were passionate about,
right,
kind of unknowing, and you just got really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you land your first major job after Kent State?
It was like 6 months after I graduated, which was about normal to find work right out of school. I went to work at Even Flow Baby Products in Ravenna, Ohio. They were the manufacturers of a number of nursing items and small toys and so forth.
Was there anything specific that drew you in that direction, or is it just that happened to be the job that was open?
The job that was open, and I needed a job.
Yeah.
And it was always amazing back then that people got jobs in their field.
Right.
Quite a few of the people did not.
Yeah. What did you find coming out of Kent State and going into the workforce, into the trajectory in children's products was that unexpected? What did you find when you first got there? Was it exciting? Were you like, okay, I'll just do this? What was your kind of initial reaction?
Well, I was asked, wouldn't you get bored doing the same thing, the same design, baby stuff over? I said, no, every challenge was interesting. And it was a challenge to do new and different things. I found the whole career to be exciting.
Yeah.
And to produce items that were actually made and sold in the American market.
Yeah, that's cool. So looking at working in a corporation, so you've got corporate business, there's management, you're looking at the bottom line. How did you balance the ability to be creative with the constraints that you had on the items you were designing, market demands, management layers. How was that for you?
Well, initially, I had very little contact in that regard as far as business management. So, thing for basically asked me to do certain things. Very little planning on my part because I was new and experienced in those things. And I kind of grew into it over the years, realized when I had to understand these disciplines
Yeah.
because it just made you a better designer in part.
So if you started to understand the management,
Right.
you could design in a way that would meet the constraints and get it to market faster.
I listened very carefully to people that were over me, people
Mm.
that had other expertises in the industry, and learned from them.
Was there anybody in particular that was kind of a guiding force for you? A mentor or anybody?
I'd like to throw a name out, but I can't. I don't think I had a mentor, so to speak.
Yeah.
I just admire the people in the field or in the company.
Mhm.
It was a small company, so there were only like three of us in the
Yeah.
whole department. So,
And that was the design department.
yes.
What kind of products did you design when you were there?
I think I first did some little, they call bathtub buddies. They were little latex toys, like a little sailor, a little mermaid.
Uh-huh.
And they were meant to float in a bathtub with
Yeah.
kids would play. They were made in Hong Kong, and
Yeah.
my job was to initially design them, sculpt little models, hand paint them, and so forth. And they went off into production from there.
Yeah. And this is an era because when I was in college as a design major, it was a time where we were shifting from pencil paper drafting to CAD drafting.
Right.
And when you were doing all of your design work, was it all hand drawn?
All hand drawn.
Mm-hmm.
When we did instruction sheets, for example, that was one of our jobs for the car seats to do instruction sheets.
Yeah.
We actually typed in the copy a typewriter, cut and pasted the strips. That's what we used as, a guideline for instructions. Very archaic, but nothing was available at that time.
Yeah, it worked. It worked. So when did you make the switch from Evenflow to Century? Was that the next company?
That was the next company.
Okay.
A friend of mine, or the guy I worked with at Evenflow, left Evenflow, went to Century. About a year and a half later, he contacted me and said, we have an opening here for another designer. Would you be interested? And it was a hard decision to make. I had only worked a year and a half at Evenflow, didn't know where I was going as far as career growth. They didn't have a lot of planning back then. But I took the job anyways, and it was an hour drive. I had to go to Cleveland for this.
Yeah.
So it was a long, long drive every day, and met some really...
When you were at Century, was there ever a time that you had a really good idea and you had to fight for that idea to get it into production?
Oh, yeah, you realize you've got to be a salesman.
Mm.
You just can't say, here's an idea, what do you think?
Yeah.
Here's an idea, and let me tell you about it. Let me tell you how it's going to be good and how it's going to sell well, et cetera, et cetera. If you didn't do that, you were flat on your face.
Yeah.
If you couldn't sell your ideas, your products, they weren't going to go anywhere. So I learned that early on, and sometimes it was a bit of a fight, but it was challenging to overcome other people's objections to what you were showing. So I enjoyed that aspect.
What were some of the objections from your lens?
There's no market for, being questioned. Some people were limited in their knowledge of what they're actually working in. It'd be too expensive. It'd be too dangerous for children to use, and you had to explain why it wouldn't be dangerous, why it was economical, et cetera, et cetera.
So did you have to know the market really well?
Yes, I did. And it was a small industry. Juvenile products industry was small. Most of the salespeople were outsiders. They were like sales groups.
And they work on commission or...
And they worked on commission, and they were interesting because you'd have like whole families of salespeople, the father, the son, and the grandson or whatever, working together. And they worked in certain neighborhoods. We had some sales, I call them families, worked, for example, in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And their clientele were certain people, and that was their
They sold,
expertise.
yeah.
Another guy might be working with a large, like, I want to say, I can't think of the name of the company, Kmart or whatever. Now, that guy who was in charge of the account for Kmart did very, very well because he not only carried our products, he carried like 4 other lines of goods that were extremely lucrative to him.
Yeah.
Like Fisker scissors, that was one of his accounts at Kmart. You can imagine how much money he made just on the scissors alone.
For our younger listeners, Kmart was around before Walmart, but similar department store. So just want to clarify that for people who are like, Kmart, what's Kmart? Yeah. You developed a huge body of work. I've seen samples of your portfolio, and I've seen myriads of drawings that you've done. We have toys that you designed and developed. So 30 plus patents, 36 patents in children's products?
Yeah, so some of them were minor.
Sure.
But again, if you wanted to protect it from other people in the industry stealing it, so to speak, you had to get a patent.
Right. How did you organize your creativity? How did you organize your process? What was your process like?
In designing, you want to locate what the problem was, find a solution for that problem. That was a big part of it, knowing exactly what had to be accomplished to meet the goals of what whoever gave you either gave you the idea or wanted a product. I had to think about it, digest it, and then hopefully sell it.
Yeah. Working in the children's product space, designing for little bodies, parents' concerns, safety, compliance, what were some of the unique challenges in that niche compared to, say, something that would be made for adults?
Well, we had a lot of lawsuits, like any company does. We had lawsuits that involved young children because they were using the products that we were designing and building. And you get sued once in a while.
Yeah.
And that meant I had to go into a deposition, which you're sitting there in a room, you're deposed by the other attorney, and they would be asking you questions. And the question would be very pinpointing if they wanted you to say something that would, like, we messed up,
Yeah.
So you learn how to answer those questions.
Well, let's talk about successes. What are you most proud of in your career as an industrial designer?
I think leading a group that developed some outstanding items and were recognized by many in the industry, industrial award kind of things was nice to get, be awarded by your own people, your own industry folk. And also the fact that people would buy your products. And it always bothered me, or kind of scared me in a way, that people would buy my products. I'm going, hope they don't break.
Yeah.
Hope they work okay.
Right.
Yeah. Because you're making not just a couple, you're making tens of thousands of items. You keep going, somebody's going to break, I'll get blamed for it.
I think that's an area of concern that most consumers don't think about, is how the person who designed that car seat or the toothbrush, whatever it is they're using, how they feel about that product. Because for you, it's very personal. I imagine you put a lot of yourself into it.
Yeah.
And then, so that takes us also to, you mentioned the design award. You won the International Design Award.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
And I think the one I got was for a baby bathtub. And it was unique in the fact it was totally redesigned. So it was shapen in a very pleasant form for the ability of the parents to use it and for the baby to sit in it. It had a specialized mesh that the mother would, almost like a hammock.
Yeah.
It was fastened to the sides of the bathtub, the baby bathtub. The mother would kind of nestle her baby in this little sling. So be in the water, a little bit out of the water. So it was seen as a big benefit for people washing their babies.
Well, I've used it.
Oh, that's right.
My son was the first of the three of my kids who,
that's right.
And using a product that my dad designed was really cool.
Did it work okay?
It was beautiful. And the mesh, the sling was fantastic. And then when they get older, they can kind of get down in the water a little bit further.
Well, it was exciting that we were a small company, and I did many things in the company, not just design. I would help source, purchase items like that mesh you're talking about was actually a football jersey.
Oh, yeah.
And we got samples of fabric. Thought, this stuff is perfect. It's colorful. It's washable.
Yeah.
It was a football jersey material.
The International Design Award you got for the the baby bathtub.
Yeah, there were other awards, but different products along the line.
Yeah. What's something that you learned from that, from winning an award?
To carry it from start to finish. We had an outside design team do most of the mechanical drawing work and so forth. So working with them, they were in Connecticut, if I recall, working with them, trying to let them fulfill my needs, requirements, designs for this product, so it carried through. So they just didn't sit there and design something. I gave enough information so that they could move forward and do what I wanted to be done.
And at that time, were you the VP for research and design or research and development?
At that time, no, I was a manager of research and design.
Okay. And then later you became VP of
Yes.
research and development.
Yeah.
Tell me about the dynamics of working with the research and development team as the VP, as the leader of that team.
A little more disconnected because you had other responsibilities. I was basically the attorney liaison for our patent attorney gentleman his office was in California, San Francisco. So he and I would talk, and I would pass things to him that I needed taken care of, and so forth. So I worked with him quite a bit on the legalities of what we were doing.
Yeah. How much design input did you have at that point with your team?
How much
design input did you have with your team?
A lot, because a lot of them, they come from other industries. They have no idea what certain things are, even though they'll learn them eventually, hopefully. We had guys coming from vacuum cleaner companies,
right?
Who are designing intricate type parts. And we say, we don't do that. We do things a little more gross.
Small parts with babies is not a good thing.
No.
Yeah.
Plus, they were too hard to make. We didn't make those kind of things.
Yeah.
We molded most of our goods, and they were not fine-tuned molding. It was like, I don't hate to say garbage cans, but they were molded like basic utility devices,
right?
Not fancy computer stuff.
Yeah, and always in a prototype first before.
Yes, and back then prototypes were extremely. We didn't have these some of the things you have, and I can't think of the top of my head what you call them.
Like a 3D printer.
Yeah, we didn't have that.
Yeah,
these were made by hand. All these handmade things.
I remember a lot of foam.
A lot of foam, yeah, messy stuff.
Yeah.
But it was all done by hand. You needed someone who was a craftsman to do those kind of things.
I remember going into the factory at Century was it Bill's work area?
Bill Ward.
Yeah, his work area, and just being fascinated at all the stuff that he was working on and all the little pieces and parts. And I remember the smell of the foam when it was being cut, and some of the adhesives, and just that industrial prototype lab, essentially. Yeah. It was cool. How about failures, things that didn't go so well?
I had
no failures. That's a hell of a career.
One would be to take an item. I was a children's stroller, and we needed a new item in the marketplace. And I laid out the ideas for a new stroller structure. We had an outside design firm in Columbus, took our input, built a prototype without us seeing it beforehand, brought it to the company, and our president and all of us said, "Oh my God, we got screwed." Well, fortunately, we didn't have to pay for it because it was way out of sight. They didn't follow any of our guidelines.
Yeah,
they finally got around to producing what we thought was good, but the company was changing hands at that time. Outside people were interested in buying our company, so a lot of major projects, which would have cost millions of dollars, got put aside or collapsed.
Yeah.
Or if you got a new guy in charge of marketing and he didn't like what he saw because it was personal opinion, he would cancel it.
Right.
He had the ability to cancel things.
Looking back, working in the child product industry, your thinking, your values, your relationship to design, to business, how did that shape you as a person? How did working in that industry, working in that specific design field, shape you over that time?
You're always in close contact with the buyers, the parents. You got involved with children because you had focus groups that involved almost playing with these kids or showing them toys, seeing how they reacted. So, real close connection with the parents and their kids.
So your work was extremely people-centered. So you were engaging directly with
Oh,
the people who are potentially going to be using this. Yeah.
definitely.
What advice would you give a young designer who's entering the field today, whether it's child products or any field of industrial design, especially one aiming for something that's high impact, family oriented?
Hmm.
What kind of advice would you give a young designer?
Well, a lot of fields could be say is interesting, but it could be really almost blind-ended. I'll give you an example, like furniture. People go to furniture because it's kind of neat designing furniture, but that's going to be the end of your trail.
Yeah.
It's not going to split. I was fortunate to go along with a company that did many things, and although they were baby-oriented, they were wood, they were plastic, they were a number of vinyls, and I used, because it was a small company, I used to source and buy these things. Did a lot of traveling overseas in the Orient mainly, so I got a real hands-on connection with materials and the process and so forth. You go into a law.
Some law background would be helpful.
Well, I think back when I was starting out, getting a business degree along with your design degree would be very helpful. Helpful the fact that you would understand your other discipline. You understand marketing people better. You understand the salespeople better. It also gave you more of an avenue to climb in the company. If you didn't have certain degrees, if you only had one degree, you were a designer, you couldn't really expand. You were stuck, so to speak. Now, in some cases, you could go beyond that, like I did, but a lot of guys just stayed on that level and they became draftsmen.
Yeah.
And nothing more than that.
Right.
So expanding your career in other areas that pertain to design, like business would be, like an MBA or whatever.
Right.
Some guys went into engineering along with industrial design, and that was very helpful.
Among all of the products you worked on, some of the ones I remember in particular was the Ducky step stool, which I think there's still one in this house, or it could have ended up at our house. We may have it. There was that one, and then you worked on the project with Jim Henson and the Muppets.
Oh, that's right.
What did you do with Jim Henson?
Well, it was they had a whole, I forget the name. It was called Baby Muppets.
Muppet Babies.
Muppet Babies.
There's a whole show.
Yeah, and that was a new avenue for them. So they wanted people to produce products that reflected the Baby Muppet characters. So I worked with directly with the people. It's in New York City, and what a fantastic studio they had.
Oh, I bet.
Open 3 stories, winding staircase. You know, it was incredible. And we worked with the designers there, the marketing people there. They wanted to see what we were going to do. We present models and prototypes to them, and they would approve it or make changes to it and so forth.
Yeah. Did any of that ever take off with the Muppet Babies?
Yeah, it was sold. We had a company we bought. It was called, I can't think of the name. It was a company in Rhode Island that made lamps, small toys, and so forth. And that was put under the Baby Muppet. They carried the Baby Muppet line.
Yeah.
So we had lamps and I think a bank and some other things that were Baby Muppet characters.
Yeah. That's cool. I remember watching the show with my younger sister and seeing the prototypes in our rooms. I think we had the lamps in our rooms, the little Muppet Baby lamps.
Oh, yeah.
And they were kind of a first or second rendition of the stuff that you guys were working on. And growing up in the 80s and knowing who Jim Henson and Kermit the Frog were, and that you got to work with Jim Henson, who was the voice of Kermit, was fascinating.
Well, I met him once. It was some kind of dinner award thing.
Yeah.
And he sounds like Kermit.
Yeah.
You know.
That's fun.
Very likable person. I didn't talk to him very long, but it was just interesting to meet Jim Henson.
Yeah. Anything else that you would want to add or advise for leaders in really any industry, but specifically around industrial design? Anything you wish that company management, owners, team leads, directors should know in their field, just based on your experience?
Now, you can't forecast everything, but people knowledgeable of what's coming up, what could come up, what's going down the hill, won't come up again. All areas of basic manufacturing, so you know how things can be made. If you look at a prototype and go, you can't make that, and someone say, yes, you can if you do this and this and this, because he has a manufacturing expertise to tell you how it could be done. So I would look at other areas of avenues in the industrial design field that would make you a bigger person, so to speak, and make you more valuable. Imagine yourself as working in a company and there's people that run the company, you want to impress them with your knowledge, not bragging about it, but say, I've had some background in this, and like you can counteract a lot of negative things.
It's especially like the idea of making yourself a bigger person, being the best at what you're doing as you can possibly be, learning as much as you possibly can. So you're an asset to your own career, but you're also an asset to whatever company you're working in.
So you have to be more of a performer, and I learned how to do that. I learned what would work and what wouldn't work, when to shut up and when to make objections, and so forth.
That's good. Well, Dad, thank you so much for sharing these experiences. From designing for kids to navigating corporate structures, you've had an incredible career. For our listeners, next time we'll shift gears and talk about your military service and how that influences everything today, including your grandchildren. Dad, thanks so much for coming on the show.
You're quite welcome.
If you're ready to take the next step in your leadership, whether that's improving communication, developing your team, or leading through uncertainty, I invite you to join me for a 3-session pathway to a 90-day leadership plan. You can find the link to schedule your first session in the show notes. Dad, thanks again, and to everyone listening, remember, success isn't always found in the spotlight. It's forged in the shadows.